is a board that's not in tune with the citizens that of the public you represent. You're not here to please yourself, to please somebody else, to be in competition with another community. You have a budget. That's our tax money. And that budget is supposed to be respected and kept within a tolerable percentage for the people who live here. And we, the people, have a right to full public knowledge and more participation of the laws and issues you're undertaking for approval. We need more public participation. Otherwise, you know what happens here? You people put a motion, you vote, doesn't matter what anybody says, you're going to vote what this committee says, and it may not be what the public you represent wants. And that's what's bothering a lot of people. And you're taking the power away from the people you represent in this community. It's our power, it's our money. You're included because you're all taxpayers, most of you are. It's called representative government, and I don't think it's being served as it should be. Neither do a lot of people in this community that I talk to. The budget is not even understood by a majority of people. And for example, the solar farm, these people came here twice. Once they were heard, second time they were dismissed, and yet they were on the agenda to still have the respect to be listened to, and they weren't, and that's not right. And the village and the village center you're talking shouldn't even be talked about until we have money budgeted out for this. We can't afford this anymore. My taxes went up $500 this year. That's ridiculous. And we're getting caught up with a lot of stuff that we shouldn't be now. And now with the new president coming in January, from what I've been watching and hearing, there's going to be some changes made of things that are going to be required that may not be required, that I think before we do all this voting to spend money, we should wait and see. We can wait till January to see what the president's going to cut out and what he's going to allow and not allow. It might be to our advantage to wait. We're in such a hurry to approve everything. And I don't understand this at all. And you know, you get these consultants, and you know, there's a joke about them. An executive, here's what they say: an executive is a person that's either resigned or was let go, and then he declares himself a consultant. Okay, and this is who we listen to. And you got to look at this stuff, who you're listening to, and look at money. What does it cost the taxpayer? That's what we want to know. And so I'll wait until we have our meeting. I've found something very important out about the TIDS, and I think this has a very big impact on the money that we have available to us. But it's our money. You're voting for what we should be doing and budgeting for our welfare, not what you think is all right all the time. So that's all I got to say for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wanting to come forward?
Okay, Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. I just have a few questions. One of the things, I was looking at the contract section of the agenda packet, and I did not see any contract associated with Rinka, and they would have had a contract awarded, much like Bailey Copeland's business. So I'm thinking that that might be running a little late in being updated. And I was also wondering when the format changes were going to occur, because people on this committee have asked for changes, and they don't seem to have been made yet. So if you could let us know when that would happen, that would be great. I would also like to suggest that maybe on the agenda itself, you could add the budget line items, because it's hard to tell from reading the agenda if things are in the budget or if things are requests for new money. And so that might be, or even if you just put new or in budget, it would be helpful to understand more about that. I appreciate the savings of monies that Aaron's presentation, I think, is going to do for the buildings, what you call that? The Symetra, I think was the company's name. Yeah, for insurance. So I appreciate the fact that we're having some savings there. That's great. And I am against raising the policy amounts by committees and various people. I think that having the dollar amounts low and having to go in front of a committee to explain why you want the money is good policy. Having higher amounts that individuals or committees are able to just vote on something or decide on something is against the residents' desire for less expenditures happening. We have a lot of costs in our 5-year plan for deferred maintenance, never mind any of the other things that are on the docket. And keeping tabs on and keeping it harder for people to spend money is a good thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Hi, Sarah Larson, Butternut Road in Germantown. A couple items, 7E. I don't know if you had a chance to see the comment form that I sent about the contracts, and Rinka, who was doing the visioning sessions last week for the Village Center, was not listed on that contract list. And so when you get to that item, I would expect that amount to be disclosed. Consulting services. It seems every meeting that I've attended, we are approving some sort of consulting services for something. And it would be interesting to do a pullout within all of the payables over the past 2 or 3 years as to how much the village has spent on consulting fees. I think maybe hiring some people with the appropriate skills in some of these areas, even if we have to pick up a couple more engineers of various backgrounds, that has to be cheaper, because I bet we're several million in a year just on the consulting fees that are being spent. The other item is F, regarding the changing of the spending cap. I would oppose that as well. I think it starts to turn into a right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And when there isn't visibility, it's very easy to say, oh, I was at 6,999. Let me go ahead and make a separate purchase. And then you lose track of those items, and that's how budgets explode. Thanks.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Scott Heffley, W159 and 10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. Just a couple comments tonight. I see that Tyler Munis is on the renewal for subscription. And just so everybody knows, West Bend's been using this software for 10 years. And if you look at their reporting that they put on their website, by the way, all the time, it's pretty spectacular. As a matter of fact, West Bend, upon my request, sent me a copy of their most recent reporting because I'm a Washington County resident. I don't even live in West Bend, but if we get closer to that, it'd be better, because right now we don't really have financial reporting. We have a lot of ledger work out there. It's certainly not clear, but easy for me, and I have a finance background and I read financial reports all the time. So, and it's very expensive, so we need to make sure we're getting our money's worth, because just so everybody in this room knows, the school board, the school district has a $54 million budget. Yours is $22 million. They run all their software, costs them $40,000 a year, and you're paying $120 plus an upfront fee. So just so you know, there's other software programs out there that work and do the very same thing, and that's certainly a larger budget than ours. So let's get the most we can out of that if we're going to keep renewing. Because right now the financial reporting looks like input and ledger work, not financial reporting. We're going to be looking at impact fees. We had a utility advisory commission meeting. I'm on the commission. We talked about it just right before this meeting. They're looking to push water impact fees forward, an increase of a couple $100. I was looking for more information. I was the only one that voted no, but everyone else has voted yes, and that's fine. That's my, I understand we need to upgrade our fees, but I think we need to be smart about it and do it a little at a time and not just bring them all forward because there's some big increases coming. And you're going to hear about it. You trustees will hear about it from your people. They're going to ask why and they need to know why. Final thing is looking to amend the code and amend the ordinances and all that, to double basically the amount that we give responsibility for people to have, they can sign off on. I have a problem with that because it goes back to checks and balances. In accounting and anything in purchasing, you need checks and balances. One of the failures, I call it a failure, everybody said it's no big deal. I heard that from at least one trustee, is in the audit where they suggested you can't have people taking in money also and then cutting checks. Now, I know that's being worked on and rectified, but it was brought up, it sticks in my memory. So if you start opening up these limits to what, hey, 15 grand, you do whatever you want, you don't have to report to anyone. I think it could lead to a problem. And I understand inflation and I understand all that stuff. Believe me, I do. But I think 7,500 is plenty to make a decision. And, sure, it might make you trustees' job maybe a little easier, but I think of all people, the trustees would want checks and balances because you have to explain to constituents when that goes away. So I am not in favor of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else wanting to come up forward? All right, if not, we'll move on to consent agenda. Item A, minutes from October 21, 2024.
Move approval.
I'll second for a discussion, please.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Trustee Jan Miller.
I'd like to go to, on our agenda, page 5 of 375. And under C, during the legal services request, if you could, it says the direction was given to Administrator Krecklow to review legal services RFPs and have department heads review and approve. And that's partly correct. I mean, they're supposed to review it, but it will come back to GGF in December and then the village board in January. So the way it is written, it almost sounds like it's the department heads.
I think it was,
approve.
you would approve the ones that we were going to have, that we were selecting in the selection process to come before the board for the final approval. I'm happy to make a change of this committee.
If you don't mind, just put going, then go to GGF December, full village board January. That's what we discussed, correct? I listened to it again.
I remember this was a discussion item, wasn't it? That you were going to put the RFP out.
Yes, and
And process.
yeah, and I think that the process that Trustee Jan Miller is describing is what the direction of the committee was.
Yeah.
To that we have a committee or a subcommittee of department heads that are reviewing the proposals that we received. We're planning to bring a recommendation to GGF in December. Whether or not the committee wants to change the minutes is really, I think it would be a motion to amend the minutes, and then if the committee votes to approve them, then the clerk will make the change that you direct.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the minutes, please.
I'll second.
All right, a motion to amend item C on the previous minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else? Then I would go back. That was actually an amendment to the motion, right? Or a change to it. So we will go back to the original motion, which is to approve the minutes of October 21st. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So we'll move on to new business, and I have a request to move item E and F to the front, if we could, and I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to move item E and F out of order. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll go on to item E, proposed changes to village impact fees and connection fees.
While Mr. Cameron from Ayers is getting set up here, well, I'll just say thank you for that. We do have a Girl Scout troop coming in at 6:30, and I promised to give them a tour, so I appreciate that.
I don't want to hear about the impact fees.
Did they bring cookies?
Well, can I don't see the same command. Can I do the cool, oh, I see it. Germantown boardroom.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see that. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
It is, but I don't know why. I wouldn't reject onto this. It's my family. Thank you. There we go. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Cameron with Ellers, and what we'd like to walk through this evening is just an update to where we're at with the impact fee study for the village. And where I'd like to start is just by giving an overview of what impact fees are, how they work mechanically. We'll dive into the history of the village's existing impact fees and talk about what we're seeing to date in terms of the update to the existing impact fees that are on the books. So this diagram just shows kind of in a nutshell how impact fees work. So you've got, as you've got new residential and non-residential development that occurs within the village that has an impact on public services, water, parks, library, police, fire, et cetera. An impact fee under state statutes is a one-time fee that is payable at the issuance of a building permit that recovers the proportionate share of the capital costs that are necessary to serve that new development. So when we talk about a little more specifically what impact fees are, it is recoverable of the capital costs of new facilities under state statute. You cannot recover operating and maintenance expenses through impact fees. You can also not recover costs related to vehicle expenses. It really is regulated to kind of your more traditional brick and mortar type capital facilities. You can also not use impact fees to correct existing deficiencies. And that's part of the analysis, is to really perform a study that identifies the future growth share of specific capital improvement projects. So when you look at updating an impact fee or imposing a new one, and you look at the projects that you consider selecting, at least for further analysis on the capital side, I think one of the most frequently asked questions that we get asked as we get brought into a study like this is what sorts of projects should we include in terms of kind of a time horizon standpoint. And in our experience, really relying on projects that are part of an approved capital improvement plan, and specifically projects that you have a high degree of likelihood that are going to occur really within the next 3 to 5 years are good candidates for including in the analysis. Not that you'll move forward with it, or it may be determined that an impact fee is not the most appropriate method compared to other methods out there, but putting projects in there that are quite a ways down the road or may realistically not occur are surefire ways to, as you go out into the future, potentially have to refund those impact fee revenues as you collect it, because part of the statutory requirement associated with impact fees is that you've got to use the fees that you've collected within 8 years of the time period of collection. And when you talk about capital facilities, most likely you're talking about larger ticket items. What's very common with these facilities is that you're borrowing for them. So using impact fees to help pay for a share of the principal and interest expense related to the debt associated with these projects is very common. What also is very common over the years is that, say, the general fund or the utilities advanced money to do the project using impact fees to repay and replenish those fund balances for the growth share of those projects, if that was the original funding source, is also very common. It's also common that municipalities will keep these fees in their account, and when the project comes to fruition, liquidate the account, either reduce the amount that they're borrowing or reduce the amount in cash that you're putting out from other sources. And then finally, how often should impact fees be evaluated and recast? And in my experience, I think it's really every 3 to 5 years or as conditions change. And there's a couple reasons for that. Oftentimes, when impact fees are initially adopted, they're adopted in advance of a project. So you're using an engineer's estimate at the time that the impact fee is being calculated. Coming back and revisiting that after the project is done is good practice. The other thing to consider is, really as population and land use conditions change, it's also a good idea to revisit it at those periods of time. So just, at a high level in terms of working through a study process, with an impact fee under state statutes, you've got to go through what's called the Public Facilities Needs Assessment. And that Public Facilities Needs Assessment has a number of different requirements associated with that. For each impact fee, you've got to take an inventory of your existing facilities. You've got to document and quantify the projects that you're looking to recover through an impact fee. And then, per state statutes, impact fees can only be used to recover the growth share of those project costs. So there's got to be some method and methodology for evaluating and quantifying what those growth-related project costs are. And once the impact fees are calculated, you've got to quantify the effect that they have on housing affordability in the village. So oftentimes, again, we're relying upon adopted capital improvement plans, adopted architectural analysis, or facility plan data to be able to calculate those fees. So when we look at your current and potential future impact fee, the village right now has a number of impact fees on the books. The water impact fee is currently at $832 per residential equivalent connection, or REC. One REC equals a single-family home in terms of water consumption. Park, fire, law enforcement, and library are all per residential unit under your existing ordinance. The park impact fee is at $736. Your fire impact fee is at $171, $148 for law enforcement, and $281 for library, for a total of $2,168 per residential unit for all impact fees. And then one of the things we'll talk about tonight is the potential for sanitary sewer. I know right now you've got a sanitary sewer connection fee that's on the books. Connection fees are very similar to impact fees, but really there's a couple of projects that were identified in working with staff that could be considered either through a connection fee or for a sewer impact fee if you move in that direction. So I'll go through these one by one and talk about at a high level about the update of the fees and what we're seeing in terms of the costs. The water impact fee was actually the most, from what we can see in the ordinance, the most recent impact fee to be adopted, and that was adopted back in 2007 for the upcoming Well 11 project. Well 11 was built and placed into service between 2009 and 2010. Most of it was booked into service in 2010. The 2007 study had an estimated cost of that facility of a little over $2 million, with 71% of it being related to servicing new growth and development and recoverable through an impact fee. So that total was about $1.4 million. When looking at updating it with the actual cost of the project, the actual cost of the project was $2,469,788. The same growth percentage would apply in this case. So the total recovery is a little over $1.7 million. When you take that cost and divide it by the number of residential equivalent connections that that well is designed to serve, the impact fee is recommended to go to $1,003 or from its current amount of $832. On the sanitary sewer side, we've, in looking and working with village staff, there are 3 upcoming potential lift station projects that have growth-related components associated with them. That would be the Old Farm Lift Station Project, the Main Street Lift Station Project, and Lift Stations 3 and 6 Consolidation Project. So as part of the analysis, we reviewed the engineering work that has been done to date by Ruckert and Milky, looking at all of the different lift stations across the village and these 3 projects in particular. And our understanding is that the village is working with them on some additional engineering analysis related to these 3 projects. But tentatively, what we looked at as part of the study was the current design capacity of each of these lift station projects related to what Ruckert and Milky is designated as the future potential theoretical design capacity for the lift stations upon their upgrades, and the difference in terms of that the difference between the two being the growth share of the project or potential recovery, project cost recovery, either through an impact fee or through a sewer connection fee. So, and again, this is on the sewer side still preliminary in nature, but at least gives you an indication of really, what could be available through fee recovery. The Old Farm Lift Station has approximately 44% of it assigned to future growth, 39% of the Main Street Lift Station project and Lift Stations 3 and 6 consolidation, 88% growth related. So total cost estimates currently for those 3 projects are just under $16 million, about $15.7 million. 52% of the composite in total would be related to, or could potentially be related to, servicing future growth and recoverable either through an impact fee or sewer connection fee at a little over $8 million. So we're still working on calculating what that would mean in terms of fee potential, but that's where we're at in terms of looking at the sanitary sewer side.
Excuse me 1 second before you move on.
Yeah,
So right now there is no sewer impact fee, right?
that's correct.
And-
you have a connection fee.
Well, we
on
do have a connection fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So this could be a potential for updating the connection fee and incorporating these 3 projects, or potentially moving to a sewer impact fee. Connection fees and impact fees are very similar to each other in terms of how they act. They're both one-time fees payable, generally at the issuance of the building permit for new growth and development. The difference between the two is that an impact fee has its own section of state statutes associated with it, and it requires the public facilities needs assessment process. There's as I'll talk about in a little bit, there's a public hearing requirement that you have to go through. And then really you've got timelines, an 8-year timeline to spend those impact fees. Whereas a connection fee does not have its own section of state statutes. Many municipalities have sewer impact fees on the books. The connection fee generally falls under a municipality's authority to establish user fees, for the constituents that it serves.
Do you happen to know what our connection fee is
I
now?
don't off the top of my head, no.
Anyone?
I think it goes by the size.
Oh,
Our sewer superintendent has that.
oh, thank you, Tim.
It's $4,919 per residential equivalent.
So if it was a corporation coming in, and then it would depend on their use,
Correct.
usually higher.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving to the park side, there were 3 projects and working with staff that were identified as potential candidates for impact fees are all trail projects, Goldendale Trail, Division Road and Freistadt Road Trail projects. And looking at the, existing mileage of trails compared to the new total amounts of mileage of trails and looking at a service level standard. When you look at the amount of future population, quantifying that down to the number of lane miles of trails per 1,000 residents. What we're looking at with the future, with these three future projects is that approximately 34% of each of these projects could be assignable to future growth and recoverable through an impact fee. The total project costs that were identified in the village's trail plan for these projects totaled about $8.3 million. So 2.8 of that total could be recoverable through an impact fee. When you look at that divided by the total amount of future growth that's estimated over a 20-year period of time, you get an impact fee per capita of $437, or when you multiply that out to a single family home, assuming 3 people per dwelling unit, you get a total impact fee of $1,311 per dwelling unit. On the library side, the initial library impact fee was adopted in the mid-1990s for the library facility construction. Your capital improvement plan identifies a second floor construction for the existing facility. In looking at the percentage of future growth as or total growth over the next 20 years as a percentage of where the 2045 population is, it identifies 23% of the second story facility as relatable to servicing future growth in the village. When you look at the total estimated cost, less what could be potentially available through the county's grant program, as well as potential fundraising efforts, you've got a total estimated growth share of the facility at approximately $1.5 million, a little over $1.5 million. Taking that cost and dividing it by the estimated population growth over the next 20 years, you get an impact fee per capita at just under $237. And when you extrapolate that out to an impact fee per dwelling unit, you end up at just under $711 per dwelling unit. The next two impact fees are related to public safety, so law enforcement and fire. And with these, my understanding is that, you've got a study from GRAFE that was done that we used to identify, what the potential future growth share could be. But we looked at it, from the standpoint of standalone facilities and those standalone facility costs. And I know that there's still debate on, a joint public safety building versus standalone police and fire facilities. My, recommendation, we'll walk through the math and the analysis, but my recommendation, if in terms of bringing, updated impact fees forward for both police and fire, would be to do so when you've got consensus on which way you're moving with the building costs, because obviously that has a, pretty high degree of change in where these impact fees could go in terms of just not only the square footage of these facilities, but also the cost that could, alter the percentages in the impact fees that you see here. So, and it would be in an effort to bring something forward that is, as real as possible in terms of what you're actually, which direction you're actually going forward with. But we could talk about, if you were to move forward with standalone facilities for both law enforcement and fire, this is what the impact fees look like in terms of where they are and where they're going. So the new station cost for law enforcement is a little over $30 million from the GRAFE study. When we look at law enforcement and when we look at fire impact fees, what we're doing is we're establishing service level standards for both, employees, sworn and non-sworn personnel, in terms of the number of square footage that is needed or desired per employee, and number of square footage that is needed or desired for each vehicle in service and where we might be headed over time given population growth projections. And then comparing that service level standard back to existing population and then quantifying how much square footage we should have given those service level standards to service our existing community. We can then use that as the basis for quantifying how much of the new space is attributable to servicing future growth and development in the village. When looking at the building that is identified in the standalone building that's identified in the Grafe study, we can quantify that about 76% of it is related to meeting the existing needs of the village, and 24% of it is related to servicing future growth and population needs and recoverable through a law enforcement impact fee. So of the total, $30 million cost, approximately 7.2 million of it would be attributable to new growth and development and recoverable through the law enforcement impact fee. When you break that down to both residential and non-residential development, because with law enforcement and fire, it's appropriate to charge that to both residential and non-residential development. You get an impact fee per capita of $581 or $1,743 per residential unit, an impact fee per square foot for industrial development of 53 cents and 79 cents per square foot for commercial development. Same analysis on the fire side, and both police and fire impact fees have been in place since the mid-1990s. The new station estimate from the Grafe study was a little over 17 million on a standalone option. 77% of that building space, using the same sort of analysis in terms of methodology, was identified as meeting existing deficiencies, with 23% related to meeting future growth. So of the total estimated project cost of 17 million, approximately 4 million of it would be attributable to servicing and meeting the needs of future development and recoverable through a fire impact fee. So that equates to an impact fee per capita of $323 or $969 per residential dwelling unit, 29 cents per square foot for industrial, 44 cents per square foot for commercial development. So again, my recommendation with both of these, and we've talked with village staff on this, is you certainly have a number of candidates that you could bring forward now for updates, and I think it's really important to keep these fees updated, but it's equally important to bring fees forward that are based on the desired direction of the village when it comes to in particular these two projects. So in total, what we're looking at between parks, library, law enforcement, fire, and water per dwelling unit, residential dwelling unit, would be going from $2,168 to $5,737. So the parks, the water in particular, I think are ready now in terms of finalizing the public facilities needs assessment document and bringing those forward for consideration to the village board for approval. I think the library impact fee could be ready now. It's just a matter of whether or not you're ready to proceed with that and commit to really doing the project. And I think that's one of the bottom line takeaways of this presentation tonight, is when you impose an impact fee, you really are committed to doing and following through with the projects that are in that study, or pivoting to a like project with that. And not necessarily Germantown, but we do impact fee studies for a number of municipalities. And what I've seen over the years is where municipalities can get into a situation where you might have to consider refunding is you've got an impact fee that considers kind of everything in the kitchen sink in terms of project costs, and you get out a ways and realize we're really not doing half of these projects. We're just not. So you're looking at recasting and potentially refunding those fees. So again, I think it's really vitally important as you consider updating these, that you're bringing recommendations forward that you really are going to be following through on in terms of the project cost.
I did want to mention one thing, that in our original packet, that was provided, can you go back one slide?
Yeah,
The proposed impact fee total and the difference total was incorrect.
yeah, it
And
didn't
they are
include, it
corrected
wasn't
on
picking
your,
up that last line, the water line, so I apologize about that.
and those are corrected
These are
on this
corrected.
one.
Yep, yep. So in terms of next steps, if you wish to move forward with updating, all or a portion of the impact fees, there are some, items that we need to work with staff on to finalize the assumptions and the analysis. And then we'll finalize the actual impact fee study document, the public facilities needs assessment. Once that is done, it has to go on file in the office of the clerk for a 20-day period of time. During that time, we'll also work to amend the existing impact fee ordinance to update the dollar amounts, as well as just to modernize it relative to any changes in state statutes that's occurred since the last time the impact fee ordinance was looked at. Once that period of time is done, there's a class 1 hearing notice that has to go out. There's a public hearing that is required to amend the impact fees. And what is usually done, you certainly have, flexibility on this, but oftentimes you have the public hearing and the actual, agenda item on that same, board meeting's agenda. So public hearing is first, and then later on in the agenda is the action item on the impact fee ordinance. But you can certainly break that up, do the public hearing in one meeting and actual adoption of the impact fee in another, if you so choose to. Thereon after these are done, again, coming back to them really on I'd say a 5-year cycle, is good practice going forward. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So I do have a couple questions. Number one, if we have a development of any kind, let's say somebody wants to build a house, but they're outside of our utility area, do they get the water impact fee?
Yeah, I believe that they do. Yes. So all development, and we don't have.
I'm not sure they do. Because they don't get a connection fee on sewer. Why would they get a water impact fee?
And I guess I'm thinking of commercial industrial, not necessarily.
Well, they would probably be in the utility area though.
And they weren't, not necessarily when they start, when they come in and approach us initially. I'm trying to phone a friend here. I'm not sure if we got an answer for you right off the bat.
It's a good question.
Yeah, that's accurate, that the fee would only come with connection to the system.
Okay, that makes sense. And then as far as the sewer impact fee, we really have two options, right? We keep our connection fee, retain our connection fee, or what is impact fee?
Yeah.
Could be over and above that?
It could be. Example would City of Waukesha has both a connection fee and an impact fee. One's for the collection system, one's for the wastewater treatment plant. So doing an impact fee for those 3 lift station projects and keeping your existing connection fee preserved is certainly an option. What's also an option is updating the connection fee and adding those 3 projects into the fold. So that's also an option
So
as well.
the option is possibly adding that to the
be,
connection
sure.
fee as well.
Yep.
Okay.
I would, if
so
I
that one-
could just
Go ahead.
interject on that, I would strongly recommend that we review the current connection fee. That was one of an issue we had an appeal recently, and it's been a while since that's been looked at, and it had an automatic elevator to it. So every year it went up by 3%. And so that probably is important that we review that.
What was the result of the utility advisory board tonight?
They recommended going forward with the water impact fee.
Okay, and that's the only thing that they had on their portion of it, right?
They saw a similar presentation here, but again, the recommendation that they went along with is that we're not ready for the sewer fee yet.
Okay. All right, thanks. Committee, any questions?
Comment.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Terry.
I mean, we're like doubling this. And I'm thinking of this poor person, well, probably not poor for sure, who's building a new home, and that seems like a pretty dramatic increase to hit our future resident with.
I mean, that was my first reaction looking at this. And when was the last time we increased these fees, Steve? It's many years, right?
Actually, the water was increased in 2007. For the others, you have to go back into the 90s.
That's what I thought. It's been a long time, so I understand that. But it still seems like, I guess if you're buying a $700,000 home and can afford that, probably $6,000 doesn't make much of a difference, but I don't know. It just bothers me a little
Well,
bit that we're doubling this.
Sure, no, and I can, certainly appreciate that. One thing to consider with this, from a policy standpoint is, number one, you've got analysis behind it. And in most cases, what you're seeing is, that the growth share of each of these projects is actually relatively low. Most of the project cost will still get borne by either, the utilities or the, general property tax roll if these, assuming these projects to proceed. But the other thing to consider is that the impact fees that are calculated is the maximum. You certainly have the ability, as the board has the ability to bring that down below that. It would be, you'd be arbitrarily bringing it down below the maximum that's calculated, but that's, certainly your prerogative if you decide it's.
I think I'm looking for that middle ground for myself personally, and I can be convinced either way. It's nice to get the money. We certainly can use it for all the projects we have coming up. However, I also don't like to put too much of a instant burden on somebody who's trying to build and become a resident of Germantown.
Sure.
So I personally would look at something in between the 2,168 and the 5,737.
If I could just, and that's certainly something we can work with Ehlers on. And I think the area where there's the biggest difference is in fire and police.
Right.
And that's where you see the big jump up in fees. And it would also raise a total of about $11 million for that, $50 to $60 million for the project, which could, so, but we can, that was part of the reason why I think the recommendation was that police and fire should probably wait tonight. And we can look at some alternatives with Ehlers at something in between and give the committee and then ultimately the village board some options.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Thank you. So, on the impact fees, I've been on boards before, the library board, and this, first of all, we are getting intermittent reporting on this, maybe only quarterly or something like that. But I think this is something, if we're charging an impact fee, it should be monthly. And not wait for an accumulation. It's just my feeling. On this little chart on the library page, page 11, you have, and there are a lot of things in the 90s because that's when everything was built. The library was built. I think public safety moved and whatnot. But on here, it lists library facilities estimated cost at 8.5. That's correct. The second floor was identified to be added when the building was built in the 90s. The structure is there. So it's an extension of the current building.
Sure.
It's encapsulated in the current library. And we have it's not, I don't believe it's listed correctly. It should be library. We have a Washington County offset fund, and it's about $1 million. It has to be matched by the village. We voted on it. It's all set, ready to go. So that is the 2 million. Would the library be willing to do additional fundraising? Absolutely. What could we do? You never know.
Sure.
So it was in the 5-year plan. I believe it was 2027, actually. There was a fire then there was,
Yeah.
fire department, police, fire, whatever, 2027. I thought we were, so I thought I'd throw that in there. So any impact fee there would be welcome. And I'm sure, on the park side, it would be as well.
And, if the fundraising, in addition to the grant funding, the match, increases or decreases, again, that's a good way to come back. And especially after you actually have done the project, know your final costs. It's a good,
Yes.
Could come back and just quickly update that. And that's a pretty quick update to the calculations.
Okay. Where did you get the numbers for the park or with the staff? Did the staff come up with this?
The cost numbers, that comes
Yes.
from the trail plan.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So the impact fee is a one-time fee, and the future, you're always talking about this future number. I'm looking at the park right now. It has Goldendale, call it 800,000, right? Is that the maximum we can, or is that?
I would focus more on the percentage and then
Oh.
when the project is actually done, you would insert the actual dollar amount. So if it comes in, or, I looked at option 3. I know there were a multitude of options for Goldendale. If you choose the higher one, or if the project changes, you'd come back and update that accordingly. So.
And then could you pick and choose, which trail you're going to work on a,
Oh, in terms of how the money flows? Yeah, so
correct.
you really, it is again, an in and an out. So you really have just got to show and demonstrate that you've spent the money collected, in any 1 year by the end of the 8th year. So if the first project is, say, Goldendale,
Okay.
and the first impact fees we're going to use up to that 800,000 that we collect are going to go out and go for that project cost. And then the next project comes in. I realize it doesn't come in that nice and neat that they overlap each other, but it really is just an in and an out that you've got to be able to demonstrate, yep, we've spent this money. It's gone out the door.
And then your population growth, is that based on about a 1.5 annually?
I'd have to look at the math,
Total
but yeah,
information.
it seems about right in terms of percentage growth.
Yeah. No, I would be kind of middle of the road too. That works. I don't know how important.
Well, from what I'm hearing, I mean, law enforcement and the fire impact probably need a little more work before we move forward with those.
I would recommend, until the board says this,
Yeah.
we're going in
Mhm.
this direction or that, direction in terms of separate buildings or consolidated building, that would be the point in which you'd update and bring those
Okay.
forward. But parks, library, water, those could be brought forward now for adoption.
Got it. And, I understand middle of the road. I mean, you're looking at two different things, right? You're either impacting or putting the burden on new development, new residents, or new commercial properties, and that's pass through. The buyer is going to foot the bill for that, or the leasee is going to foot the bill for that. Or you impact the entire community with taxes a little bit higher because you don't have those impact fees to pay for this infrastructure.
Right. Right. I mean, I've been doing impact fee work for over 20 years, and I've heard, you hear both sides of the coin when it comes to this, with this argument that you're going to deter development. And I think what you hear from most developers, it still comes down to the 3 L's of development: location, location, location. And to that end, the flip side of it is, most people, when they're moving to a municipality and they're paying, the cost that they're paying for these homes now, which it only goes up, is they expect high quality services that come along with that. And, obviously the impact fees are a portion of that. I think maybe the one takeaway with this is, again, coming back to each of these individual analyses, what you see is that the impact fees are a part of the overall funding strategy, or could be a part of the overall funding strategy. They are not the funding strategy. You know, they're only funding a portion of these project
Right.
costs. They're not shown to be 100% growth related and we're going to recover it all through an impact fee. You know, there's still a deficiency cost. And I think that just goes, a lot of these facilities probably go without saying. I'm sure if you think about your, you know, your police and fire, you most likely, if you didn't have another drop of growth, you'd still be going forward with these projects. You know, it might look a little different in terms of the cost, but these facilities are warranted and needed in most cases, I would say.
Thanks for all the information. With that, is this committee ready to move the parks, library, and water to the village board?
I think so. I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to move forward with the parks, library, and water impact fees. And we're going to hold on the law enforcement and fire until further information and studies. Any further discussion? And again, this goes forward to the village board. We are not making a decision on this solely.
Just quickly, what would be the implementation process? You have to have a public hearing and
do,
then,
yeah.
okay. So like Q1 of 2025?
I think it's still possible to get it in December.
Oh,
But yeah, it'll be end of year, beginning of next year.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, motion on the table. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Presentation. Gotta find my agenda. Where'd you go? Here we go. Okay. Yeah. Item F, and it's unfortunately Administrator Krecklo's gone, but Matthew, are you okay with this, or?
I can take it if you'd like, or if you'd like to move to next GGF, we can do that as well. So within your packet is an updated purchasing policy for the Village of Germantown. You know, the major changes that we're looking at making is raising the purchasing thresholds for department heads, the committees, and then ultimately the village board. Another change we're making is, while we always, encourage going out for bids and getting quotes and RFPs, we're trying to cement that within this purchasing policy, saying, anything above this dollar amount, we require, 3 quotes or 3 bids or an RFP if it reaches a certain dollar threshold. As relates to some of the dollar amount changes, what we're really looking at is trying to, balance, oversight authority of the village board and committees with, efficiency within the departments. Specifically, some of the larger departments where public works is where, some of these purchases or contracts fall in, above 7,500, but below 15,000, or so somewhere in this range, where we're trying to balance efficiency with proper oversight. And taking a look at some of our other neighboring communities, specifically West Bend, just given that their location to us and their size, this is still much more, I would say, conservative than Mequon. Mequon allows department heads up to $25,000 for purchases. We're certainly not recommending that. Just looking to change some of the dollar amounts to create that efficiency, while also, encouraging or requiring more upfront work from the department heads to get those bids, to get those quotes for those types of purchases. Then we made some changes to the petty cash policy, which really only affects Village Hall, as we don't have many petty caches throughout the village.
So, excuse me, a couple of things to point out here, and I just want to ask a few questions before we get into the more detail. But first off, this is for budgeted items, things that have already been approved by the budget.
Correct.
They can't just take a checkbook and go on a vacation.
No, correct.
Second off, capital items. This is not for capital items from what I've read.
So most capital items are approved at the budget, during the budget, or at some oversight committee. Typically, there are no capital items that, aren't in the budget and then approved. So this, while we would still require, quotes and bids and things like that, all of that would have gone through committee at some point.
Got it. So, yeah, okay, I misread that a little bit. So it has to be a capital project that's already approved, and basically we've approved the contract with somebody.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, I think that's all I had for now. Trustee Jan Miller.
What is the reason for elevating the dollar amount?
I think there's two reasons. I think, you know, the overarching reason is just to balance oversight by the committee or village board with efficiencies within the departments. So we're trying to find a good balance there. These levels haven't been updated since 2017. And if you just compare prices from 2017 to 2024, you know, there's been, you know, higher than normal inflation. So we're just trying to find that balance between efficiencies within the village departments with oversight of the committee. And so with that, we're trying to strike a balance there. Perhaps the committee feels it's too high, perhaps, you know, leave it up to the committee. But we're trying to strike a balance between efficiencies for department heads and oversight.
I feel like these are two different things. You've got purchasing policies, and then you've got the municipal code for those dollar amounts. Is it like two different things? Isn't it two different things?
Well, they're related because to update our purchasing policy, you would also have to update the village code as those dollar amounts are enshrined in village code. So if you wanted to, if we were to, you know, adopt this village purchasing policy, we'd also have to update the code to match it.
Why would you have to change the dollar amount? I don't understand.
The dollar amount within the purchasing policy. So we're recommending updating. You necessarily wouldn't have to. No, there's nothing requiring you to. That was just staff's recommendation to balance those two interests.
So in looking at this, I mean, personally, I don't have an issue with the higher amounts. You know, $5,000 on a budgeted item on something that's already been approved by the village board is not an issue. And $15,000 approval or anything above or up to $15,000 for an administrator is not an issue either. However, with that said, I think that we should probably think about this, review it, and maybe postpone it till the next GGF meeting.
I agree. I'll make a motion to postpone this item.
Second.
And I would just add, if there's any, you know, further information that you're specifically looking for, feel free to reach out to myself or the administrator, and we'll work to get that to
Okay.
you.
Sounds
you.
good, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move back to item A, resolution approving the 2025 Germantown Municipal Employee Union Local 730 contract.
I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but we agreed with the union on a 3% increase, which is what general employees are receiving as well. So.
Right, this is basically the same for the union employees as it is for our non-union employees.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, I need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Right, any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, 3-year subscription for the police department phone system.
So the AT&T contract has now expired with for the police phones. And so we have been working, the chief and I have been working with a group who is giving us options on how to move forward. And one of their options was to go with Spectrum. And so as you can see, currently we're paying about $602 a month, and this would bring us down to $123 a month. So it would be saving the village a lot of money, and we would be getting out of this contract which, if we stayed with it, would be increasing our costs by 150%. So due to FCC regulations, they're mandating that we no longer have an analog copper line. Kind of like the village hall went through that process. Now the police is going through it. I think before, you know, the police department didn't jump on with us because they were still involved in being responsible for 911 calls. But now with that moving towards the county, I think it's the time now to go in that general direction.
Is this the same company that has the rest of the village contract?
It is not. So they wanted to keep their phones. So they work with Norcom with their current phones, and they wanted to stay with that and keep the same number. I mean, they would be able to keep the same numbers anyways, but they wanted to stay with that phone system and that structure. So instead, we're just doing it through Spectrum. But it's still the same kind of voice over IP SIP trunking lines that we have. So.
And the $4,500 annual savings is from what we're paying now, right? Not the 150% increase that we're gonna
Correct.
get. Don't switch this. So,
Correct.
Okay, good,
And-
thank you.
And it meets their needs, the FCC needs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve with the staff's recommendation
I'll
to go with Spectrum.
I'll second Spectrum.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Any further discussion?
Just a comment, it's
Yeah,
great,
go ahead.
great to see the savings of $4,500. I mean, you can't argue with that.
And just so you guys know, this will be also on the village board meeting tonight so that we can get the savings going quicker than as possible. So.
All right, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item C, Civic Plus contract renewal.
So this comes up every year. It looks a little larger than normal, but that's because it's added on a bunch of components that we were paying for separately before. So I just wanted to point that out in here. There's been some ADA requirements on websites that are specified to government entities now. And so we've had to change some of the ways we go about doing it. We tried doing it internally, however, we just don't have the staff power to get that done. So we're going with AudioEye. We were going with Moncito for that. We also have Civic Clerk. I have all of them listed in here. I'm sorry. MuniCode, Archive Social, and then our website, Civic Plus. So all of those costs are included in the total price of $31,000 for 2025.
I gotta say, I had no idea that ADA came into play with our website, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
I just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
So that's all rolled into this now, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And our new website is going to go live in January, so which is also on this agenda. So I hope we can get to that.
Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the Civic Plus contract renewal.
For $31,000.
For
I
30
will second.
All right, a motion to approve the contract with Civic Plus. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, Tyler Munis, excuse me, Tyler Munis contract renewal.
If it's all right with the committee, I'd like to punt on this one until the December GGF. They were unable to get me the updated pro forma by tonight's meeting. We had been working with them the last couple of weeks to drive down that price a little bit, and they just haven't gotten back to me with the updated pro forma. I still expect it to be in about that $120,000 range, but until I have the final pro forma, I don't want the committee to approve something we don't have yet.
Sounds good.
Make a motion to postpone until our next meeting.
I'll second.
All right, motion, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item G, annual stop loss contract with Symetra.
So this is another big win, I feel. So with USI, we just started with them in August, I believe. And they have already done a lot of work on our stop loss contract. So we've been with Sun Life for about 3 years now. And so they did an RFP to try to find better products and better costs. So they are recommending that we switch to Symetra, which would save us about $113,000 in fixed costs. Plus there are other things within the contract that is going to protect the village altogether. So
Is any of that cost shared with the employees? Or is this more of a
it's more on the village.
administrative side?
Yeah.
Okay, so the village itself will
Yes.
realize
the
this.
Health
this-
fund end. Yep. So not the village budget end, but the village health fund end. Yep.
All right, committee.
Oh, we like to see savings, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I take that back. I
So
mean,
far,
I-
it's working well, isn't it, with this relationship? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the annual stop-loss contract with Symetra.
I'll second. What?
All right. Yeah,
did you
Aaron,
wanna
what were you gonna
add?
say?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So I take that back. It could show benefits for the employees, but it's just not at the moment.
The
So at-
overwhelming amount, though, is going to be on the administrative side for the village.
Because it's stop-loss.
Correct.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
saying if it helps the fund build up, then
Sure.
in time it could help the
Now I
employees.
understand.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, I would just like to build off that. So the health fund, it's a self-funded health
Yep,
fund
yep.
between village employees and the village. So as overall health fund expenses decrease or increase, that affects the premiums, which both affect the village and the
Not part of
employee.
the general fund, really. It's.
Correct,
yeah.
correct. So for example, if health fund expenses decreased, that would result in savings on the premium side for both the village and the employee. Much like, it's treated like a utility in the sense of it's self-funded.
Got it. Thanks for that clarification. Appreciate it. All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, website update. Do we have a
Okay.
presentation?
Yes, so basically what this presentation is going to be is I'm going to show you what our website is right now, which I have it up on the screen, and then I'm going to show you what it's going to be. And, we've been working since April, and I'm really proud of the team. We've really put a lot of our, efforts and experiences and expertise towards making this happen. And so I'm really excited to reveal this to you guys. So this is our current website right now. And this is what it's going to look like in January. So you see it's cleaned up here. It has a direct link to get your information right up front. This picture right here will change on random. So we have a few good pictures, which it will change to. I think if I click right here, I think it will change. Yep, to the new water tower. That was perfect. Okay. And so we took the areas that people are clicking on the most and we put them to the side right here. We used to have a large bar below and now we don't have that anymore. We kind of cleaned this up and only put the things that are, most clicked on. In the trending now, we cleaned that up and made things look a little better. If you look at what they look like over, sorry, I'm having trouble finding my mouse. Okay. Over here. So the latest news kind of look like this. And instead now it's going to look like this, trending in Germantown. And then going down further, now we have the calendar. And the calendar is a lot different than it used to be. So now we have the calendar over on the left, and then over on the right, we have the meetings that you can click on with their times and their dates. Just to kind of show you what the other calendar looked like. The other calendar looked like this. So quite a different way of seeing the calendar. And then very basic, clean bottom of the website. So altogether, there was a lot of cleanup on this. We went through and made sure everything was working and functioning properly. Also, if you want to see, oh, nope, it's not right there. I picked a page too to kind of show you what a page is going to look like. Now, this won't be up here. The only reason it's up there is because I'm logged in. So you see a slightly different view just because I'm logged in the back end. But when you click on these, then they're going to have these underneath with the bars. So I think it's going to be much easier to manage for the typical resident. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but That is going to be our website.
Yeah, go ahead.
This was done by committee, correct? And you were part of that too, Jan, right? Yeah, I think you guys did a good job.
Yeah.
I might take a different picture of that water tower for you.
It was a very fun process. We had a lot of discussion to try to make it the best that we could possibly make it. And I think everybody, I really had fun working with everybody to try to get this accomplished.
I think it's great. It looks a lot nicer than it did. It's got some visual highlights to it that
Oh,
are
I didn't even
helpful,
show
right?
you
When you
these.
hover things
Yep.
and that, and I truly believe if you have a committee of 7, you're gonna get 14 different opinions. So to come to a consensus is probably pretty good.
Yeah, everybody was real happy with the turnout of everything, and it wasn't, a decision on the first night, we had many meetings where we
Sure, you
we
did.
went back and forth on all of these things, so I'm really proud that everybody got this accomplished.
Great. Well,
So the main difference is the look and the amount of buttons that you have the opportunity to touch and get to where you're going. I think we had about, I'm just going to make up a number like 20 and now we're down to 12.
Oh my
or
gosh.
Whatever.
So-
So that really helped a lot.
So if you see in here above the latest news, we had this whole Citizen Help Center, and then we had this bar up here, and then we had the sidebar. I think there was just way too many things, confusing things, many things that were going to the same place. And so it was, trying to
And so
minimize.
my point is that it's looking great. It has less buttons. It's easier to use. And the actual content itself is constantly being updated. So that's always a process,
Yeah.
just so you know.
And we've been doing a lot of that behind the scenes. So hopefully by the end of January, I believe it's January 21st,
We go
You know,
live.
can be
This is
great.
great, and I thank you, committee, for taking care of this and working together to get our page updated. It looks great. So, okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item I. We've got 2 more. Acceptance of the liability insurance proposal from Municipal Property Insurance Company for the policy year 2025.
So this is with MPIC, part of CIVMIC.
Civic, yeah.
Yep, and so this is for our property insurance. You will see, and I do have it listed, that it went up quite a bit, but this is because we have a brand-new, beautiful
Yeah.
Public Works facility. So,
Same company renewal, but we do have the Public Works building now.
yes, yep, so we have that added along with a couple of other properties that have been purchased within the year. And so with all of that on our plate, it did increase. But it's the same company, they're a great company. They really work with us whenever we need them or have questions, so.
How much did it go up?
I think it says in the summary, it was like,
Mhm. The premium rose
45?
45, but our value increased 67%.
Oh,
Percentage.
percent. Whoa. Okay.
the dollar amount of what it is right now, it's $109,479.
That's the current one. Is that right?
Oh, that's the MPIC, no, that's the one going forward, 109.
What's the 229,732 then?
So that, I'm sorry, was supposed to be removed, so please discard that. That's for CIVMIC, and we don't get that until about April. So we don't get that cost until around April, I believe. So
Okay, so we're only
I'm so sorry, this
approving
is just for
the
MPIC.
109,479,
Mhm.
or that's the recommendation?
Yes,
Okay,
I apologize about that.
glad I asked that. All right, I need a motion? Go ahead, Terry, if you have a
I'll
question.
make a motion first to approve the municipal property insurance company contract for $109,479.
I can second.
And then I guess my question was, how often do we look at other insurance companies for our needs?
Sure. So we had been, before we were with Civmec, I'm sorry, Civmec and MPIC, we were with EMC3 for many, 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 many years. So we have only been with Civmec for about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's an annual contract, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And they do, so this other cost that's on here, so that was the estimated cost for this next year. And that was for workers' comp.
Okay.
So, but that won't be approved yet because I don't have the final.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item J, consideration of funds to purchase playground equipment for Hauptstrasse Park. And we have Gil Standridge here for some
Thank
background.
you. Basically, we discovered that the spinner or the old merry-go-round at the Hauptstrasse Park was in need of major repairs. So I called in Minnesota, Wisconsin, who represents Game Time Equipment, and they came in, inspected the equipment, and they provided me with a quote of just the parts and the labor to repair the equipment to its original state, which was $12,059. I reached out to Lee Recreation that can also provide the same piece of equipment, brand new, installed for $10,751. What I'm requesting from this committee is I was awarded $300,000 for the Kinderberg Playground project. I came in at $277,214, so I had some money left over. I did get approval to spend $2,850 for a landscape project that was needed for the playground area. And so I'm asking if this committee will allow me to use the 10,751 out of the 300,000 to replace this spinner at Hauptstrasse, and that'll still leave $9,185.
And that was the 2024 budget?
Correct.
Is that correct? So this
Yes, sir.
was,
Capital budget.
this was capital, wasn't it?
Right.
I believe this is a 2023 capital budget.
Oh, okay. That's right, because it took a while to get the equipment.
It's not a problem too, because it's equipment. It still would fall under that capital borrowing.
Correct. And just not to go back to the purchasing policy, but this is a good example of if, for example, we raise the purchasing authority to 15,000 for the village administrator, this would still have to come back to committee because it's a capital project that wasn't originally budgeted for. So regardless of the dollar amount, this would still come back to committee. So not to digress.
No, if we keep doing that for about 6 months and you give us those examples, well, I'll feel better, I think. It'd be great.
Figure it out.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the $10,751 for the Hauptstrasse replacement spinner.
I'll second that for the new one.
All right, we have a motion. Is the current one that's needs repair, is that out of order or what are you doing with that?
We keep trying to put it out of order, but people keep using it, and that's
By the way,
a worry to me. I want to remove it altogether.
understood. All right, thank you. There's no further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right, we're down to our reports. And hold on. I'm sorry, what was that? Yeah, I know we're at 7 o'clock. They can wait. Sorry, I lost my page. Anyway, first one's always accounts payable, right? Here we go. Accounts payable. Anything with accounts payable? Budget to actual. Payroll. Quarterly IT report. Any highlights, Aaron?
Not really. It's just an
Okay,
overview.
Things are pretty good?
Yep.
All right, good. contracts, there were a few questions on the contracts and Matthew, one question I had is that when Tyler Munis was coming on board, we had talked about that the village trustees at some point would get some ability to run reports and do their own reports. And where are we at are we at that level now where we will be trained on something like that, or aren't we there as a village yet?
So within the last, I'm gonna say 2 to 3 months, we came online with something that Munis calls Executive Insights, and it's a dashboard essentially for different types of reporting tools. I haven't really shown that to anybody yet, but if the committee is interested in getting into that module, that's certainly something we could bring forward. I haven't played around with it too much myself, just given that, put that on the back burner a little bit. But I think that
Just give me a login and
yeah. I can certainly get
nuts.
the GGF committee member set up in Executive Insights to play around and take a look at it. If you do so, you'll probably be more familiar with it than I have been. But I'd be happy to set you all up with that. As it relates to contracts, there was a comment about the Rinka contract. I'd like to apologize to the committee for that. The village administrator asked that I set up the account for that, and until I set up that account, he couldn't enter that contract. And by the time I had ran this report, I hadn't set up that contract or that account yet. So you should expect to see that on the next GGF committee packet. The village
Which one was that?
The Rinka contract.
Oh, Rinka, yeah.
The village administrator was kind enough to pass me a little note that the contract amount is $57,050. As it relates to some of the other aspects of the contract report, something we're looking to do at the start of the new year is kind of classify the different contracts. I think of contracts as, for example, the MPIC one we just did. If that's an annual contract, we should send something up that has, for the website, an annual subscription. So what are all the contracts that are annual subscriptions, such as the website or GIS services or Tyler Munis? Those can be set up as a specific category of contracts. If there's an engineering contract, perhaps we have a setting for contracted services engineering or contracted services construction. So looking to set up those different classifications of contracts in 2025. So then we can, filter on that type of report and then have renewal dates for those annual subscriptions. So we're looking to implement that beginning of 2025.
Okay.
All right.
Great. I appreciate the Excel format, so I can play with it a little bit. What percentage of the contracts do you believe that you have put into the system now?
It's a really good question. Some of the smaller annual contracts are probably not in there, but all the large dollar amounts that have been approved, certainly by committee or the village board, are entered or will soon be entered. For example, the Rinka contract was approved, but hasn't been entered in the Munis yet. But certainly all the contracts approved by committee or board have been entered. It's likely some of the smaller ones that fall, under 7,500 or, in a couple $1,000 range for annual subscriptions. Those all have not been entered, but we're looking to enter those moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and the last report is the ARPA funds. So we have a remaining fund balance 1460. Does that have to be allocated at some point, or
Next month, maybe.
what happens with that?
Yeah, so for any dollar amounts that aren't allocated by the end of the year, I haven't reviewed the ARPA instructions recently, but my assumption is that we have to return those to the feds. So if we come up with, $1,400 of qualified expenditures, we'll probably apply it to that expense and call it a day.
I got an idea. I'll email you.
Gotta do that quick though.
Well, it's gotta be by December, yeah.
1 month.
1 month.
Yeah.
It's in my brain.
Okay, that's all our agenda items for tonight. Our next meeting will be on December 16th at 5:30 PM. With that, we will adjourn at 7:09 PM. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah,